Thank you, Professor Sider, for presiding over this session. I first have to give a bit of background. As in many senior high schools, my school has a very full AP program, including Latin, and I taught that course for over 20 years. In recent years, however, although our numbers for the AP were good, we realized that we needed a Latin 4 honors course to accommodate students who may wish to continue their study of Latin, but not for the AP syllabus. So I set out to put together a fourth-year experience that would be quite different from the AP. I called that seminar Rome in their own words. Students would read the textual transformonia and bring that information together to understand the physical city of ancient Rome. As a difference from the AP syllabus that drills deep with two authors, this honors course would introduce a wide range of authors and genres. After several years, the course has been a popular way for the Latin program to keep enrollments beyond the AP course. Some of the texts are quite well known. Seneca living above a bath, Propertius's description of the temple of Palatine Apollo, A Day at the Circus Maximus with Ovid's Ars Amatoria, Nero's Fire of 64, and so on. The emphasis is on the physical city of Rome. So when looking at Nero, for example, the class may work on these texts from Tacitus, the Fire of 64, an incident at the Mulvian Bridge, and the Ficus Ruminalis. These are the texts I will discuss here. By the way, when the class was working on the Great Fire, they found that the sources were Tacitus, Suetonius, and Dio Cassius. My students don't know Greek. Because they were using the digital lobes and the translation was, of course, there, that was no problem. The online lobes are a godsend for this course. I hope that all of you have institutions that support this collection. For me, it was also a lesson in having a good relationship with your librarian. When I asked if the school could get a site license for the digital lobes, her immediate answer was, sure, right away. So what I'm going to do here is to talk about three topographical moments in Tacitus's narration on Nero and the different challenges that they brought to my students. Annales Book 13 ends with a disaster on the Rhine, an unquenchable fire in Cologne, where, when water did not work, the locals even tried thrashing it to death with clubs. At the very end of the book, Tacitus adds sort of a coda, an apparent non sequitur in the last few words of Book 13. He mentions that a small but revered monument in the Comitium, the Ficus Ruminalis, was in a ominously withered state. This begs a look at this monument and why it is mentioned here. But first we must go to the Circus Maximus. Just before his description of the fire, Tacitus has Nero using the Stagnum Agrippae as the staging point for extravagant banquets and brothels, as a desecration of the monuments of the great Agrippa. However, the account of the fire follows this directly. And as the account of the fire proceeds, we find Nero attempting to bring some resources to aid the population, including opening up the monuments of Agrippa as a watery refuge. But most of the city was destroyed to different degrees, and here is the project for the students: to map out the course of the fire. Tacitus, unlike the accounts of Dio and Suetonius, gives a list of important buildings that were destroyed, as well as varying degrees of destruction according to the 14 regions. 4 remained intact, 3 were leveled to the ground, and of the final 7, only half-burned structures survived. In addition to the clues from the text of Tacitus, students can use any materials or resources. Lanciani's outdated but still great Forma Urbis Romae, the updated map Scagnetti's Roma Urbs Imperatorum Aetate, Richardson's New Topographical Dictionary of Rome, and Carandini's The Atlas of Ancient Rome, as just a few examples. Students use the map that they have been given with regionary boundaries drawn. They have to hand in that regionary map with boundaries drawn according to Tacitus's 3 categories of destruction. Students will also provide a written explanation for their reasoning for the boundaries they have chosen. And this has become one of the favorite projects in the course. The next text. Placed about 2 miles outside of Rome on the Via Flaminia, the Mulvian Bridge offers a view into Nero's nocturnal activities and his attempt to get rid of those for whom he had suspicions. Graptos, the Caesarian freedman going back to the time of Tiberius, contrives to get rid of Cornelius Sulla, one of those who caused Nero some suspicion. This is the purpose of this incident, to tell the story of how Sulla is destroyed. Yet the vehicle for Graptus's plan is a fictitious charge of an attempted ambush by Sulla and his men at the Mulvian Bridge. Apart from this, though, the bridge forms an important separate theme in this chapter. Nero's own wild evening activities out of town at the bridge, a place which he knew well, went tabatque illuc Nero. We are told that Nero made the trip here, a few miles outside of Rome, to do things that he could not do in the city. This action is set as a keynote for the chapter which begins with Hac tenus Nero flagitiis et scaleribus velamenta quae sivuit. The bridge is set as a general symbol of this. Pons movius in eo tempora calabris nocturnis in calibrisque erat. Now, a reader must further conjure a topographical map when informed that, contrary to Crapus's plan, Sulla's people were thwarted in the contrived attack only when safety from the attack was obtained by Nero's chance change of route from the direct road of the Via Flaminia to rather an entrance into the city at the Horti Sallustiani, entering probably at the Porta Pinciana. These points of physical setting coordinate 2 themes of the chapter, as they benefit from the ability of the topography to aid the reader's vivid mental construct of what turned out to be ultimately a non-event. In the end, even though we are told that Graptus's plan went awry, Sulla was nevertheless sent into exile in Massilia. The mention of the Horti Sallustiani opens up other possibilities for student projects. What were these Horti that fringed the periphery of the city? Who were the owners? What role did they play in some important events? And how and why did they change hands over time, especially being turned into imperial properties? Just a sidebar here, for example. In the 1963 film Cleopatra, we have shown Cleopatra, Elizabeth Taylor, at the riverbank with Caesar's child, Caesarion, ready to board for her escape from the city. Mark Antony, Richard Burton, tries to reassure her that he has arranged for her safe passage. Cleopatra's replies are sarcastic. At one point, looking toward the distance at the bonfire of Caesar's cremation in the Forum, she says to Antony, "Is that ... She doesn't have to finish her sentence. And his reply is simply, "Yes." And her sarcastic reply is, "In Egypt, we build monuments to our great leaders. Here you burn them like rubbish." Question for students who have seen the clip: did the filmmakers get it right? We are told that Cleopatra was staying in the Horti Caesaris at the time. Consult your maps and other resources. The answer is yes. That part of the mise-en-scène is accurate. And finally, what of the ficus riminalis? First, I must give a shout out to Diane Favreau's great The Urban Image of Augustan Rome, Cambridge 2008. Among her very useful insights is her contention that Romans were experienced readers of nonverbal texts. Good environmental memories, for example, were essential to navigating and understanding the meaning woven into the urban fabric. This would be a skill open to everyone, but Favreau reminds us that the mnemonic device, sometimes referred to as the memory palace, reaches back to the Roman orators. True to this technique, teachers of rhetoric instructed orators to fashion environments, loci, in their minds, and to stock them with memorable objects, imagines, representing various concepts. Finally, the ficus romaнаlis and its very brief mention is a symbol that we can draw together some themes of Book 14, the Annales. There were a number of fig trees memorialized in the forum. The Ficus Navia, named after Attis Navius and regarded as sacred. The Ficus Oleovitus, shown on the Plute Traiani at the Lacus Curtius. Finally, there was a fig tree close to the Lupercal at the foot of the Curmulus, under which Romulus and Remus were found with the she-wolf by Faustulus. The Ficus Romaнаlis is a story attested by Varro, Pliny the Elder, Plutarch, Servius, and Festus. Some believe the name was derived from Ruma or Rumus, meaning breast. As a coda to the end of Book 13, Tacitus mentions that in that same year, that fig tree in the Comitium, with its boughs dead and stem withered, was regarded as a portent until it regained back its fresh shoots. But Tacitus characteristically does not tell us the meaning of the portent. But clearly Tacitus's remark on the close of the Quinquennium 54 to 58 is suggesting the end of good government and Nero's descent into vice and savagery. And the Ficus Romaнаlis, quite far from being a non sequitur, on the contrary, can suggest its symbolic use as a unifying force. McCulloch in Phoenix 1980 gives a roundup of the quite varied interpretations. The recent fire on the Rhine, a natural fire, contrasts with the fires of lust in Book 14. In the colony named after her, beating of the fire with clubs anticipates Agrippina's soon-to-be murder. First clubbed, but then run through by the sword. Metaphors of birth, nurturing, and death by matricide close that chapter. Loss of libertas from this portent. Withered fig can widely point toward the disasters of 59 to 69, including the Civil War, and thus the restoration of and rebirth with Vespasian. And not least, the observation that this fig would send out a milky white substance. So now, in its withered state, it portends the matricide. So what is shown here is that Tacitus provides ample detail in his description of the fire of 64 and the important goings on before and after the fire started. He can give a small vignette of the entrapment of Sulla, which relies upon the dangerous reputation of the Mulvian Bridge. And the briefest of mention, a simple apparent coda of the Ficus Romaнаlis and how that can imply so much for such a small minor monument in the Forum Romanum, saying possibly so much with so few words. In his preface to the New Atlas of Ancient Rome, Andrea Carandini says, I quote, "Archaeology exists in the space that lies between mere data and Piranesian fantasies," end quote. As my students explore the ancient city of Rome through the words of the people who lived there, I exhort them to strive for this balance, to read the text for both clarity and inspiration as they reconstruct in their own minds the fascination that is Rome. Thank you.